This is the BenQ GP500. This is a 4K HDR LED smart home theatre projector, and it has 360-degree sound field. But it's the picture quality that's really impressive. Don't forget to hit the red button to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and click the notification bell to get my next video first. So we will also be doing some comparisons between the GP500 and the XGIMI Horizon Pro 4K. They're both very similarly priced, but first of all let's concentrate on the BenQ GP500. In the box you get everything that you would expect, including the media stick, the QS01, and that means that you've got access to the App Store and everything that an Android device normally has. There is a workaround for Netflix as well. This is the remote control, which again sadly it's not backlit, but it does have some great shortcut options like autofocus and auto keystone. Now the star of the show is the GP500. Let's get it out of the box and get it set up. The first thing you need to do is to remove the backplate and pop in the QS01 media stick. You'll notice there's a little bit of extra space around that media stick, so you might well be able to get a media stick of your choice in that same space. If you can't, then you can always power it by the USB port on the back and then plug it into one of the other two HDMI slots. There is also audio return channel and optical audio and audio out. Compared to the Horizon Pro 4K, then you do get an extra HDMI port because you've got that media slot built in. Another feature which is really handy and often underrated is the 1.3 optical zoom. This means that it's a lot easier to position the projector where you want it without having to adjust. The Android operating system is familiar, and there is the workaround via the BenQ App Store to get Netflix installed. This is how light it looks when the blind is up, and this is the brightest point of the day, so this is the worst it will ever get. Just to let you know, I did this with the XGIMI, and they were almost identical in terms of their output. Now the difference between night and day is literally the difference between night and day. This is how good it looks in a fully dark room. Now on to the smart functions on both of these projectors. Now they've both got auto keystone projection, although I would have to say I think the XGIMI's is just a little bit more smoother. It does it automatically when you turn it on, and it's also got autofocus, and I did find that the calibration of the focus on the BenQ was better. Now you do have auto keystone off at an angle as well, and again these both worked brilliantly on both machines. These are probably the two leading machines for being able to generate a straight image no matter where you put your projector. I did find that the BenQ was a second or two slower than the XGIMI, and the XGIMI was more consistent. It did the perfect job more often than the BenQ, but I did find on the XGIMI you did get more light bleed. Both machines have screen detect and also obstacle avoidance, and again they both worked very well. Again the XGIMI was slightly quicker, but literally by just a second or so, and we got the autofocus on both. Now it's always best to just position the projector in the right position. However, you can also make automatic or manual changes, and that's fine. The one thing that the BenQ definitely wins on is the amount of menu options and everything that you can change. With the XGIMI, it comes out the box great, but there's very limited options to change the picture. That's not the case with the BenQ. You can literally go in and change anything. This is the BenQ GP500, just showing adverts, and it does a really good job. Everything seems very natural. Now, the one thing to point out in this review is that both of these projectors are excellent, and the margins that we're talking are very fine indeed. I think where BenQ wins is its color accuracy and the fact that it just seems slightly more natural in terms of its display. The XGIMI in some scenes just seems slightly sharper. However, on some scenes it's very hard to tell the differences. If you look at this, for instance, there's not much difference between the two. This is them playing the exact same clip through the exact same source. I've not stopped the camera at all, and so all of the exposures and things are identical, and there really isn't that much difference between them. However, on some things they are quite different. So for instance, in game mode, the BenQ is by far the better projector. Slipping it into game mode will give you a very low latency. I measured it just under 20 milliseconds, whereas the XGIMI was around 35 milliseconds. Now for the average gamer that really doesn't make too much difference. Also I noticed that the colours seemed a little bit more accurate on the BenQ, and again that's a theme going through. The grass just seemed like the right colour. Now in other scenes, like the vibrancy and the colours of Ratchet and Clank, well, the BenQ was probably slightly less saturated than the XGIMI, which some people may prefer the bright vivid colours, but for a lot of others they would just prefer it to be more accurate. Here is an example of HDR on both machines, and as you can see, they're both very good. The XGIMI has got a slightly orange tint to it, and the BenQ is more whiter. Which one do you prefer? Which one looks more accurate? I think the XGIMI maybe looks slightly sharper. Here this is again another SDR source, and there's very little difference between the two. Again, if you look at the grass, then the grass does look a little bit more natural. And in some scenes, I just found that there were more shadow detail in the BenQ than there was on the XGIMI. But I do have to say, we are really talking very fine margins between the two. Very fine margins indeed. Now in this test I've set them up side by side, but I did make the mistake of putting the BenQ on the wrong side, so I do apologise for that. Though the BenQ is on the right this time, the XGIMI is on the left. And this is just running the same video. It's my video test that I do showing screen uniformity, but this gives a key indication of brightness also. Now there's a lot going around at the moment about ANSI lumens, and people are publishing very large numbers, but in reality it can be something different. With a number of different reviewers at the moment, we're getting lower readings than what is advertised. The BenQ is advertised at 1500, and that does get pretty close to that. The XGIMI is advertised at 2200, but actually it's performing about the same, if not slightly lower than the BenQ, and in my side-by-side test, definitely it wasn't quite as bright. The sound on the GP500 is amongst the best I've heard on any projector of this type. Now it does have 4 5-watt chambers, and that delivers crisp, rich sounds and very good bass. You've also got the smart technology built in that you can reposition the speakers depending on where the projector is positioned, and so hopefully you'll get the best sound. Have a listen. And this is an example of voice.
The BenQ PD3220U is one of my favourite monitors, period.
So I know it's difficult to tell on this type of video, but it really does offer some incredible bass and great sound.
Rex, we understand that your outdoor space is a special place. Rex, we understand that your outdoor space is a special place.
So the sound is definitely better on the BenQ, but then it is a larger machine, and that has to be taken into account. The XGIMI is much more portable and far easier to carry around, so your use case may determine which one of these you buy. So in summary, my friends, the BenQ GP500 in my opinion is one of the best LED projectors out there at the moment. The 1.3 optical zoom is fantastic, it has an amazing sound system for its size, it's super accurate in cinema mode out of the box, and everything that you've seen here today is cinema mode, apart from the gaming. The natural colours just seem more realistic, and it has MEMC built in. There were a couple of areas where I thought the GP500 just wasn't up to the XGIMI Horizon Pro. In sharpness, I found that the sharpness on the XGIMI Horizon 4K Pro was better, and also the smart functions, the auto keystone and the obstacle avoidance were also better. However, I would probably edge towards the BenQ GP500 if it was going to be a stay-in-place projector. Yes, you can move it and it is pretty portable, but it's not as portable as the XGIMI. So depending on how you're going to use these projectors, and also depending on what type of deal that you can get, maybe what you end up deciding, and that would be the one that you go for. Guys, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can check this projector out for yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I really look forward to seeing you on the next review.